Shavua Tov. This is a story about a mirror. Now, you and I, we have mirrors in our homes. Some of them are big and some of them are very small. But this is a story about a very special mirror. A mirror that existed in the old country, back in Europe. I believe it was in Poland. But really the story is a timeless story. The mirror could have been in Russia, could have been in Peru, could have been in Jerusalem, could have been in your home. This is a story about a most beautiful mirror. And this mirror, when you looked at the mirror, it was so big, it took up almost a whole wall, from ceiling to floor, and as wide as your arms could stretch. And the mirror, around the mirror, was the most beautiful frame that you could imagine. It was a wood frame, carved with very intricate designs, and it was golden. It was painted with real gold. Now, it didn't have to be very thick, because gold can be painted very, very thin, but still, it was the most magnificent frame around the biggest and most beautiful mirror. And people in the town would come to admire this mirror, and they would look at it and say, wow, I've never seen a... But they looked in the lower left-hand corner of the mirror, and in the lower left-hand corner, there was a problem with the mirror, because the lower left-hand corner, it was no longer a mirror. It was just a piece of glass. The silver on the back of the mirror had been scraped away, an accident perhaps. Unfortunately, the beautiful mirror had a damage that detracted from its value, detracted from its beauty. And the owner of the mirror would tell the people who had come to admire this mirror, don't be distressed, don't be concerned. I myself caused the damage to this mirror. Let me tell you the story. And then he would enter into the story like this. Years ago, said Avraham, his name was Avraham, his wife, Sarah, of course. Abraham and Sarah. And Abraham would tell the story like this. Years ago, I lived with my wonderful wife, Sarah, in this village. A few thousand people lived in this village. I had a small grocery store. It was more than just food. It was hardware, and it was a store that sold all kinds of things, and I would struggle to buy this and buy that into the store and try and sell, and I eked out a living. Didn't do very well, but we managed to put food on our table, a roof over our heads, and I was actually quite happy. I learned Torah every day. And I used to go out into the community and find people that needed a little bit of help, and I would help them. If somebody needed an extra meal for their family because they were short that week, I would tell them to come back to my home, and my wife would give them the food that we had in the house. Perhaps I took some of the food out of the store and gave them some food. Sometimes they needed a little bit of money or some clothing. I was fortunate that I was able to give away a little here, a little there. I was quite known as a Baal Tzedakah back then. I didn't give away very much, but it was my whole attitude that when I gave away with a very happy face, a very generous heart. One day, into the village came a stranger. I didn't know who he was. He looked like a scholar, but a stranger nonetheless. And when he came into the town, I noticed him in shul that morning. I went over to him and said to him, "Sir, perhaps you're just traveling through, but maybe you have a need. Maybe you you need something to eat or something to drink, a place to rest perhaps before you continue on your way. And he said, I think I'll take you up on it. And the rabbi, he came home to my home, and I gave him some food to eat, a cup of tea. I gave him a small bed in the corner and a pillow and a cover to let him rest for a couple of hours. When he awoke, I gave him again a nice lunch, another cup of tea. We sat and talked a little bit, learned a little bit. In the evening, we went and davened Mincha and Marav together. He came home and slept that night in my home and got up early in the morning. Davened Shachris. After Shachris, he came home. I gave him a little food for the journey, and he was about to go on his way, and he said to me, Avraham, you have such a wonderful way about you. I want to give you a blessing. I give you a blessing that you should be blessed with enough wealth to be able to do what you do in a grand way, in a way that you will be able to be a Baal Tzedakah and give away a lot. And that what you give away should not detract from your wealth. God bless you, Avraham. And he went on his way. We'll get into who this rabbi was a little later, but it used to be that people would come into my store to look for something, and when they couldn't find it, they would go on their way to another store and buy. But things changed. They would come to my store. They would ask for some chicken wire, and miraculously, I had just purchased a little bit of chicken wire. I don't know why. There's not so many chickens in our town, but I happened to have a good opportunity to buy some chicken wire. So I bought it, and just that day, someone came and bought some chicken wire. A little bit later, someone came and asked me for a mop. A mop? I have this mop sitting in the corner for so long. It was gathering dust. I said, a mop, sure. Here's a mop. And it was like something changed. It was like this blessing from the rabbi made it so convenient that everything that I had in the store was being sold. So I had more money, so I went and purchased things. And I was purchasing, and whatever I purchased was just exactly what people needed. So my store was getting so filled with things, I had to expand my store a little bit in order to accommodate all the new things that I had in my variety store. And the variety was growing and growing. I could not believe the amount of business I was getting. And I ended up being so successful, I had to buy a whole new store. And the store had 2 floors, and I had to hire people to work for me. And it was so successful, I was just in shock. My wife was thrilled. She finally had a little bit of extra money to buy a little carpet for the floor of our home, to buy a little painting that went up on the wall. And I said to my wife, I said, this is going so well. I think that I could buy a little store in the next town. It's a little bit bigger than our town, and maybe I could expand our business. She said, well, the blessing is coming. Let's do it while we can. And that's exactly what I did. I bought a little store in the next village. So I bought this store in the next village, and the same thing happened. In that village, it had perhaps 20,000 people in it, much bigger than ours. And the store was so successful, I ended up having a store in that town, and then I decided that I should open up another store in the city that was close by. And before I knew it, I was running a business that was taking up all of my time. And the money was coming in fast and furious, and I was giving it away as tzedakah again and again. But what happened was, my wife and I talked about the fact that we had a home, and we said, we could build a house now, a nice house. So I bought a plot of land on the biggest street in town, and we built the beautiful home that you come to today. And we furnished it with the most beautiful carpets and the most beautiful furniture. And my most prized possession was this mirror. I went to the big city to check on my business there. And when I was there, I found this mirror. Someone was selling a mirror that he had spent so much money on. But I had that kind of money. And I said, you know, this is the kind of mirror that will make my house the most beautiful house in all of the area. I brought this mirror home, put it where you see it today. And the mirror is able to be in a room with this beautiful table and this beautiful chandelier that you see. And I was so enthralled with my mirror, with my home, with my business, being able to supply my wife with the beautiful things that I've always wanted to give her. And I was so busy. When people would come to my home for help, I would have my secretary help them because I was so busy. I didn't have time to help them. I was so busy with my business, with my beautiful things, with my wife, with my business and my beautiful things and my wife. And I was just so busy. I just didn't have time to take care of people anymore. But I didn't want to not take care of the people, so I would ask my secretary. I had more than one. I had my secretary and my butler and my cook. And so when people were hungry, I sent them to the kitchen. When they were hungry, they went to the kitchen and the cook would give them food. When they knocked on the door, I would have my secretary go and they would answer the door and the secretary would come back and say, someone needs some clothes. Oh, clothes? Well, go to the butler. Maybe we have some old clothes to give them. But I never saw them. I never saw the people. They would come and go, but I didn't see them anymore. Well, one day, there was a knock at my door, and my secretary went to the door, and there was a rabbi-looking person standing there, and he asked to see me. My secretary came and said, this rabbi wants to see you. I said, well, let him go to the back. Maybe he needs some money. The secretary went back to the door and said, perhaps you need some money. You can go to the back of the house. We distribute tzedakah there. And he said, you know, I actually do. I need quite a sum. I don't think that this amount of money that I need, you would be able to give me without a master of the house. I believe his name is Avraham. Perhaps Avraham should see me and let me explain to him what the need is. Well, the secretary came to me and I said, okay, sounds like this is something I must get involved with. And I met this rabbi, and the rabbi gave me a greeting from the man, from the rabbi who had given me the blessing that brought all of this wealth. And I asked him, what does he need? And he told me that the rabbi needs a very large sum of money because a man in his community is now in dire straits. He is being thrown into prison because of the amount of money that he owes. I said, how much does he need? And he told me a very large sum of money. I said, no problem. I went into my study. I opened the drawer and I take out a little sack of gold. And I gave him this and I said to him, go back to the rabbi. Give him this sack of gold, and if he needs more, just come back and I will give him more. And with that, I asked the secretary to bring him to the kitchen. Perhaps he needs some food for the way. And I sent him on his way. And I went back to work. I had a lot of work to do. After all, I'm a very busy man, taking care of lots of stores, big business, and my beautiful furniture. I have to make sure that the furniture is kept up, maybe buy a new piece here or there, because after all, a wealthy man has to look wealthy because he has to take care of his beautiful wife and make sure that she has everything, that, etc. And the rabbi left. A few weeks later, there was another knock at my door. The secretary went and she came back and said to me, do you know, there's a rabbi here who says he was here many years ago and had given you a blessing. I jumped up. I said, oh, the rabbi is here. I must go and greet him. I went to the front door and brought him into my house. I had to show him what his blessing had done for me and for my wife. I showed him the beautiful house. We walked all over. It was such a big house. It took us many minutes to go from floor to floor. I brought him into the living room. I showed him the beautiful chandelier hanging over this wonderful oak table. And then I brought him over to the mirror, the wonderful mirror that I looked at. And I looked at the rabbi. I said, Rabbi, have you ever seen such a mirror? This is my most prized possession. The rabbi looked into the mirror. And he looked over to me and he says, Avraham, this is a beautiful mirror. Why, I've never seen a mirror like this before. I felt rather proud that the rabbi was able to recognize the beauty of the mirror. And he walked over to the window, and he looked out the window down into the street. And then he came back to the mirror, and he said to me, Avraham, would you mind standing in front of the mirror, please? Tell me what you see. I thought it was a rather odd question, so I walked over to the mirror and stood in front of the mirror. I looked into the mirror, and the rabbi said, what do you see? I said, see? I see myself. I see the chandelier up there, beautiful chandelier, and hanging over this beautiful oak table, and I can't see the carpet that my feet are sinking into. It's a beautiful carpet, isn't it, Rabbi? I said to him. I remember saying that to him, thinking how wonderful the carpet was at that moment. But I said, yeah, Rabbi, I see myself. So the rabbi said, come with me, Avram. I want to show you something. And we walked over to the window, and he said, look out onto the street. Tell me, what do you see out this window? Well, I looked out the window, and I saw people. He said to me, who is that lady walking on the street with the basket on her head? Oh, that's Miriam. She's a poor widow. She has lost her husband. She has 6 children. Oh, she struggles so much to make ends meet. Yes, poor Miriam. And he said, and who is that man struggling with the water on this thing he's got on his neck? There's 2 buckets of water. Oh, yes, that's Pesach. Pesach, the water carrier. He's getting quite old. He struggles to carry the water now. He struggles to make ends meet. And how about that little boy over there? The one who was hobbling like that. Oh, that's Moshe. Moshe was born with a bad foot, unfortunately. Yes, he and the family struggled to get him a little bit of care. Oh, Rabbi, there's so many people out there that need our help. Yes, Rabbi. So the rabbi says, Avram, you know what? Let's go back to the mirror. I want to ask you again. What do you see in the mirror? Rabbi, I told you, I see myself. And now let's go over to the mirror, to the window. What do you see outside the... Rabbi, we've been through that. I see the people. They all need help. And what's the difference? You have 2 pieces of glass. Why from this window can you see everything? And from this window here, you see yourself. What's the difference? Rabbi, this window, this piece of glass has silver on the back of it. And the silver on the back doesn't allow you to see through the window. But when you look at the window, you look at the window here, you can see out the window and you can see the people. But here, the silver only allows a person to see his own reflection. And the silver doesn't allow one to see anybody but himself. Silver, Rabbi, I said. Rabbi, oh, what have I done, Rabbi? My whole life has become silver. I don't see the people anymore. I only see myself, my business, my beautiful furniture, the needs of my wife. Oh, Rabbi, what have I done? Avraham said to Rebbe, you've given in to the feeling of wealth, but you haven't lost your sensitivity. I see that when we go over to the window. You haven't lost it forever. You can regain it at any time. Rebbe, I will. And with that, I made a gathering in my home. It was a gathering I invited everybody from the town to come. Rich and especially the poor. Everyone came. I then stood up and gave a short speech. And I told them that I had learned a big lesson from the Rebbe. And I took a knife and I walked over to my mirror and I scratched off the lower left-hand corner of the mirror. And from that lower left-hand corner, I left not a trace of silver. And that's why you see a mirror that is faulty. A mirror, but it's not faulty. The mirror reminds me every day that I must look out and see where my wealth can be used, where I can give myself. I no longer look at the mirror seeing myself. I now look at the mirror and I see what I need to do. And therefore, I've changed my whole way of life. I now invite people into my home. My business takes care of itself. I hired someone to watch my business. It grows, thank God. The blessing remains. But now my wife and I have returned to a way that is the blessing of wealth, true wealth, because true wealth is the ability to give of yourself to those who are in need. When you can give a lot in money, you give money. When you can give a lot in time, you give time. You give of yourself as you can of yourself. God bless you. God bless everyone. May we all merit to be able to learn how to give of ourselves in the way that God has blessed us.